Hi everyone, I'm PC Unknown here, and welcome to the channel. Recently I made a video looking at games that were delayed that turned out great, and to make things balanced like all things should be, here's a few games that were delayed that were definitely not worth the wait. These games are not ranked or rated in any particular order, they're just well-known games that were delayed for a long time, so let's have a look at how they turned out, as well as seeing what happened to the studios behind them. First up we have Too Human. Too Human had one of the longest and strangest roads to release in gaming history. It was actually first announced in 1999, and the title was originally in development for the PlayStation, where the studio Silicon Knights had an exclusivity deal. However, Silicon Knights changed companies they were working with and signed an exclusivity deal with Nintendo the following year, and switched gears to making Too Human a GameCube game. The studio would go on to have its greatest success on Nintendo's console with the release of games like Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem and Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. But Too Human languished in development and actually never made it to the platform. Silicon Knights pivoted again when they signed a new deal for Too Human to be an exclusive on the Xbox. And originally the game was meant to be a trilogy. So after nearly a decade of development, the game was finally released in 2008 to middling reviews and sales figures. The trilogy plans were scrapped, and Silicon Knights ended up declaring bankruptcy in 2014 after losing a court case with Epic Games, where the federal judge ordered the company to destroy all copies of Too Human. Next, we have a game that was in development for 15 years and probably near the top, or one of the longest games in development. And that goes to Duke Nukem Forever. It's a sequel to 1996 Duke Nukem 3D, and it took a whopping 15 years to see through to completion. It was originally announced in 1997. Development duties were handed to 3D Realms for the next decade until the studio was downsized and Duke Nukem Forever's team lost their jobs. A year later, the game ended up with 2K Games, who chose Borderlands developer Gearbox Software to finish the game, and it finally got out the door and was released in 2011. Duke Nukem Forever was widely considered a colossal failure, an outdated, ugly, and not particularly entertaining game. Also, it's considered one of the worst games of all time. Along with Gearbox Software, 3D Realms was purchased by the Embracer Group in 2001. Next, we have a game that maybe some people don't know about, called Galleon. And it's often remembered for what it failed to do than what actually the game achieved itself. It was the brainchild of Tomb Raider creator Toby Gard, and who was at that point at the top of his career in 1997. Instead of leading the development team for a new Tomb Raider game, he left to form his own studio, and Galleon was announced as its first release. During development, technical issues plagued the team as they were trying to port the game to the PlayStation, to the Dreamcast, to the GameCube, and finally to the original Xbox. Despite a lengthy development time, the ambitious plans, Galleon was nearly unplayable when it was finally released in 2004. Bugs, outdated mechanics, outdated graphics, not a very well received game. And now we're back to Gearbox Software. The only thing scarier than the Xenomorphs was the game itself. A new Aliens game entered production around early 2007. With Sega having acquired the IP, they wanted to make a new scary Aliens title. Gearbox initially started work on it, but shifted its focus towards the Borderlands franchise. This left the game to be outsourced to Timegate Studios. Once the game was released, it was actually sued by players for false advertisement, and a lot of this can be done down to many disagreements about the quality and the direction of the game between Sega and Gearbox themselves. Sega had a strict deadline, and Gearbox didn't actually have the time to get the game completed, so the game was rushed out in early 2013. It received poor reviews and was considered to be unfinished and sloppy, to the point that even a modder had fixed the broken alien AI in recent time. Okay, our next game was more well received compared to some of them on this list. We can chalk this one up to Will Wright's pure blinding ambition. So the iconic creator of SimCity basically wanted to make a game that would follow evolution of a species, microscopic organism to space-traveling super civilization. Wright began work on the game in 2000, and 4 years later, rumors began to circulate, and it was eventually dubbed Sim Everything. In 2005, Wright officially announced spur to rabid excitement from fans. Unfortunately, when the game was released in 2008, it was nowhere near the experience people were anticipating. Instead of sim everything, it was more like a sim a few things, most of which aren't great. Well, there's a few games that were in development for a long time that didn't turn out so great. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and a comment on the video. From me, the NPC Unknown, this video is game over.